Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the co-founder of Cool-Binz, Ernie Padalino. Ernie, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on this show. Ernie, why don't you tell us all about Cool-Binz? What is this concept?
Well, it's a widget that never existed, and we can dive into that as we get along. We are the first to bring to market fully climate-controlled portable storage. So we bring climate-controlled storage to your doorstep, and we have various sizes. We also have non-climate, but everything we do is fully insulated. And the bulk of our business is in air-conditioned portable storage that plugs into a standard 110 outlet.
Interesting. Okay, so I can imagine anybody that has co-founded a company like this probably had a past experience that didn't go so well in storage.
Yeah, you could say that.
So share with us what the genesis of Cool-Binz, like, why did you start this? What happened?
Well, it all happened, it was in God's hands, I guess, but we just moved down to Florida, down to beautiful Naples, Florida. And of course we got greeted by a Hurricane Irma. And it was an eye opener because we still had our stuff in storage that we moved down from New Jersey, and we were still doing a little bit of less, you know how it is, you're renovating a little bit before you move in.
Sure.
And what we thought was going to be maybe 3 months of storage turned into about 9 months in storage in what they call competitors. I won't mention any names, but it was a climate controlled warehouse, quote unquote. And climate control to them means that we have a fan inside blowing hot air on your container. So, and the experience was just horrendous. You had to wait hours to get your unit down so you could go through it and get something out if you needed it. And they were not friendly, to say the least.
Uh-huh.
And so my wife got very upset, and she's like, all my stuff is ruined. Now it's just, we just may as well get a dumpster because, why are we saving this? And she's like, listen, we could do this much better. And why don't you look into it? And that, what that meant was I had just retired and she was tired of me being home and she wanted me out of the house. So that's really what sort of started it, but it was really her idea and she gets all the credit. And her fingerprints are all over this brand, the way it was branded and everything. And the vision and the help approach to it. And she says, why can't we air condition every single one of these and rent them that way? And we started, and I started, and that was 2017 going into 2018. And keep in mind, Frank, this was never done, and it was a lot of R&D, right? And a lot of trial and error, a lot of error. Let's start there.
I
And
know
a
the
lot of stuff
feeling.
a lot of stuff you're throwing out. Say, oops, let's try that again. And I realized, there's a lot of people smarter than me. So I started hiring people that I knew what they were talking about. And these are guys that knew how to create the right size environment to make sure everything came out pristine the way it went in. And when we finally had it, we knew we had it and we locked it down. We're like, wow, this is it. This is game changing. And, as I said, we were small. We were just starting out. We weren't trying to become anything at all. We were just really adding on to, we have a little bit tiny building here that was not climate controlled in storage. We said, well, we could add on to our building.
Right.
It's kind of easy. It's simple. And then you have people coming up to us saying, oh my gosh, how do I get one? Then we're like, oh shoot, now I got to deliver one, and then one thing will add to another. And then because of the name Cool-Binz, people would call up and say, hey, I need one of them refrigerators. I'm like, it's not a refrigerator. And I'm like, well, how cold can it get? And so, people would come up and I said, well, shoot, if there's a need, fill it. Maybe there's a need for it. So I started
Hmm.
working on refrigerators, and then it led to a freezer. And then another builder came up and said, hey, could you build me an office? I'm like, yeah, I could probably build that. So the product line just started, developing, not because of us, not because we're smart people, because the people in the community came up to us and said, hey, can you do this or can you do that? And it was a fun ride because I love tinkering and, problem solving, if you would. And that's really about how we started it.
Interesting. Ernie, why don't you think anybody else had ever done this before?
Everyone asks us that. We ask it. And you get that occasional guy who comes up, oh, I came up with that idea years ago. And I say, well, where is it?
Right.
But honestly, we learned, Frank, that it's more of a niche in the beginning until you educate people. And that was really the whole thing, because we didn't know who was our customer, who would even be our customer. We were
Sure.
building it for us. We weren't building for someone else. So, and then the people we thought would be our customer were not our customer. Like, what are we doing? We were going after, the B2C business, like, hey, we're going to be a pod or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
And then we learned really quickly on that we don't want to be that. We don't want to be dealing with that. We do. I'm not saying we turn down that business, but we're mostly B2B. We deal with all the big builders, renovators, restaurants, country clubs, and we're a one-stop shop. We're the only full line of portables. We
Oh,
go from basic to freezers and concession stands and offices and air conditioned storage. So we're a first to market, and it took a lot of educating in the beginning, but we weren't trying to grow the business because as I said, we were retired, we were snowbirds. So we were going back and forth, and we were purposely just trying to let the business like just keep small. We were trying to keep it small.
right.
And as my wife would say, well, it's like an adolescent kid. It doesn't want to stay small. It wants to keep growing. And we
Uh-huh.
kept trying to make it small. And everyone said, don't do that. Let it happen. And I'm like, well, you're not the one buying these things, outfitting them, and trying to find room for it, right? So, and we're like, all right, well, let's, see what happens. And finally, we're like, listen, we're at the point of we were selling out every season, and then we had like 5 or 6 people approach us all the same time saying, we'd love to buy your company. Um, and that took us down a different path, and one that we never ever expected, because we were only, if you had told us that we were going to sell our business within less than 5 years to someone else, I would have said, you're smoking something,
Uh-huh.
but we did, and we found the right partner in Belfor, and we had so many other people that were really knocking on the door, but they were the best fit because of their DNA matched our DNA, which is all about help, being a part of your community and the help approach and people first.
Sure. And you shared with me before we started recording that, I mean, you don't have a franchise background. Most of us don't, by the way. I'd say probably 90% of the people in franchising who franchise their company had never experienced franchising. So like kind of take us back to kind of what went through your mind. You launched Cool-Binz and you realize, hey, I don't know enough about franchising that I need to partner up with somebody. And you find the folks at Belfor Franchise Group. What was your thought behind that?
Well, it almost sounds like you were saying, "Hey, what were you thinking?" but the thing with Belfor is, they are, well, number one, if you don't know who Belfor is, because I didn't know, to be honest with you, they're the world's largest restoration company. They do big commercial jobs. But the most intriguing thing about Belfor was they own so many other brands. I think we were brand number 13 or 14 that in their portfolio and
Okay.
franchise. And all those brands are similar in the sense that we all cater to, the restoration industry in a sense,
Hmm.
or something very similar too. Like we have hoods. They do all the restaurant cleaning of hoods, and we have ducts cleaning, 1-800 water damage, Blue Kangaroo pack out. And all these brands, we all feed each other business, which is just an amazing thing. So these are things I never in a million years would have known, would have thought about, because some of our possibilities were going to go to private equity, we had other companies that just, sole proprietors that want to take us and blow us up and start selling dealers. And I knew that my wife she didn't want to sell.
Mhm.
Let's start there. But we realized we're getting older, and she's like, you know what? I want to see what your company's. They were kind enough to fly down to meet with us and make us the offer. And we flew up to meet them. My wife was like, no, I want to see who you are before we sell to anyone.
Sure.
And they flew us up and they gave us a great tour. The owner, Sheldon, is what you see is what you get. Is just an amazing person. And my wife said, we found the right people. This is it. Hands down. And we still feel like that even after learning everything franchise, right? So
Right.
do's and the don'ts, you can't say this, you can't say, uh, but that's, I think, what also makes franchising good, because it's almost like just follow the recipe and you'll do well as long as you follow the recipe or you put the time and effort into it, right? And do your research. So yeah, they were just remarkable to team up with, and it's up to them to take it to the next level now.
Sure. I think it's really important for our audience to hear this, Ernie, that everybody's at a different stage of their career or they're in a different season of their life. And so it's not a one size fits all. There are, in your case, look, Catherine had this brilliance of this idea. She wanted you out of the house.
Right.
But you go into this new business. We know that going into business, I have a friend that says starting a new business is a young man's game. It's not easy. We think about how we were when we were much younger and we were starting out, and the hunger and the drive and all the things and the long hours, and we get smarter. I like to think as we get older, we get smarter to think how much more resourceful you can be. And you and Catherine were extremely resourceful in thinking, okay, how are we going to grow this? We're at this stage of our life where we have to partner up with people as opposed to grinding. I assume you didn't want to grind again, right? On your own. You already did that.
Uh,
That's why you retired.
yes, yes. When Sheldon and Rusty, the president of Belfor, they came down to meet us, and the question was, hey, where'd you get the money to start this? This stuff's not cheap,
Right.
And I was like, well, we took money out of our 401k and we said, let it roll on steel containers. And, he said, well, that took guts. I said, yeah, it did. And trust me, there were many nights that we were up and we did not sleep. And we're like, what did we do?
Yep.
But that's true in any business. If you're starting a business or any business in general, I feel like my previous career, was in consumer electronics as a manufacturer. And, all those companies, they're gone. They're out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And, so time is changing. If you look at today, I think everyone's scared of AI, right? It's going to make me obsolete. And that's the beauty about, well, not just Cool-Binz, but Cool-Binz too, but the
Mm-hmm.
service industry, right? That's not going to be obsolete. It's AI proof, as I always say. So you're delivering a service, and what makes us different is we are actually a part of the community. And like, we vetted a lot of people that came through our door that want to buy a franchise. And I always look at that because, again, I'm new to it. And I looked at it different eyes because I wasn't a franchisor. Could I see this person running a Cool-Binz? Would they represent it the way
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be represented, and to be a part of that community and work within the guidelines of franchisor, right? Like
Right.
Belfor, right? Even though the support and stuff you get from Belfor is amazing, right? They have to stay within guidelines. And there are people that, that I was like, they're not cut out for it. They're not a right fit. And then there's other people you're saying, wow, they're the right fit. How do we get them in? You
Right.
know, we want
Yes.
them to be part of the family. And maybe they don't have the financial way to do whatever. We try to find ways to make that fit, right? If they're the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty about Belfort, right? I mean, they got a ton of money. They have the right people, the right training, the right support, the right marketing. They have everything. I mean, under one roof. So if you've never been to Ann Arbor, I highly suggest, let's get you an invite up there, because it'll blow you away, the facility and the support staff that's up there in all the brands.
Yeah, that's the huge advantage of you starting out, where you don't have to acquire this knowledge. That there's a
Yeah.
trade-off, right? There's a trade-off that you're becoming part of a brand, you're selling to a brand that is going to be able to take you to that next level. But step back here for a second, just so I understand. When you launched Cool-Binz in 2017, and you've got your first location, I guess technically in the Naples area, right? When you start
Yeah.
out. So
Yep.
how far do you, or how long do you run your company on location before you sell to Belfor and you become part of their under their umbrella?
Yeah. So that was 2022, right? Literally the week of Hurricane Ian. Talking about hurricanes that just,
You got bookend
yeah,
hurricanes
yeah.
between Irma and Ian.
Yes. And yeah, so remember 1 year, solid 1 year was strictly R&D. It was a lot of, you have to build it correctly. These are all built to our spec. Like,
Mhm.
you're not just going to buy something off the shelf and stick an air conditioner, a shaker unit in it and expect it to work. You're going to ruin stuff, right? Which I know I learned, but yeah, so that was, I never, again, we weren't expecting to sell the business. It just happened, but it was like a 5 year run that we were like, okay, well, just under 5 years and it's in someone else's hands. But we helped create all the manuals, all the training.
Huh?
That's what we did here. The training facility here is in Naples. They also have another one up in Ann Arbor. So if we're trying to cover every base that we can. They heat and they cool. Like, we just finished our R&D this past winter up in Wisconsin and made sure that they could heat properly. And so you could work out of one or store content in there that you can't have freeze, right?
Right.
And so many uses that we learn every day with Cool-Binz that we never in a million years would have thought of, like, ever. Like when you come down to visit, which I hope you do, we have one that's a recording studio on premise. We have one that's doing greenery and a mushroom grower.
Uh-huh.
Um, they're portable warehouses. We have them from Sarasota Airport all the way down. People, they need extra warehouse space. Amazon. But just people are saying, I need extra warehousing and it's hot. I need climate control warehousing. And that's what we are. And it's very efficient to run. In fact, we have solar bins. We have ones that mobile offices that run strictly off of solar.
Is there, I know that all the sizes are custom, but is there a typical size? Give me an idea of what would be a typical
Yeah,
size of a unit.
the smallest one for storage is 16 foot, a true 8 foot wide by 16, and our larger one is 8 by 20. And then our refrigeration are 8 by 12, and we just introduced an 8 by 16.
Okay. All right. I want to go back to when you become part of Belfor now. I think this is great for the other founders that are watching this and listening to this, and maybe they're thinking about being part of another brand too. What else? What becomes your role immediately after selling to Belfor? Because you're still the founder. You'll always be the founder, and in this case, you're representing the brand here on the show. So, how does your
Right.
role change, and what are you ultimately responsible for?
Wow, that's a great question. So I can only speak for Belfor, BFG, Belfor Franchise Group. Like, I didn't even know what an item 7 or 19 or these things were. I'm like, what? Just say what you want. Stop with the damn numbers, right? But
Right.
anyway, and they're like, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, or whatever. And I'm like,
And they're
I
like,
said,
Ernie,
well, this,
look, Ernie, we'll
yeah,
take it from here on the franchise side.
yes, exactly. And so what my whole thing was, I need to train, right? I need to make a manual. How do you get someone there's a lot of things that go into running a Cool-Binz. In a sense, there's machinery that you're going to operate. You're going to drive a truck. We have a little robotic mule system that it's really fun. It's all wireless, it's remote control, and we deliver with it. You're teaching people that you're plugging it in, but it's got to be a non-GFI outlet, or
Okay.
so there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies, if you would. But we do all that in training. So we did. I'm going to give all the credit to my wife and Melissa, who works here. They made the manuals, and they did an awesome job. That you read this manual, you could run a Cool-Binz. That's how well done they are. They did a great job. They didn't leave anything out. So, and we're there to help you through it. We troubleshoot because you're not going to remember everything through training, and that's why we have support staff. We have regional business coaches. We have the staff here that's their job. You call them. If you have an issue, how do I forgot how I do this. Can you tell me? You call them. So being a franchisor, you are, you're almost like a mediator. I always tell people, like, you're in between the franchisor, the corporate mothership,
Right.
right? And all the other brands. And then you're helping the franchisees. And your job is to make those franchisees succeed, period. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, you want to hold their hand. You call me at night, I'm going to answer your question. And that's really what it's about. And I look at it this way: if they spent the money investing into my brand, that I am honored. I'm totally honored with that they spent that, because it's not a cheap spend to get into Cool-Binz, right? It's asset heavy, right? But they believed in us, and they believed in our brand, and they believed in Belfor Mothership, that, we're going to have their back. And as long as they work hard and we work hard together, that's a recipe to succeed.
For
That's the
sure.
way I look.
And you guys are succeeding. You're in 4 states already, right? You've got two company owned locations and 2 franchises already. Um, Ernie, what do you think? There's like 4,000 franchise concepts out there. What do you think attracts people to your specific franchise?
Mm. That's a good question. So, I think that for me, I'm looking at, again, I'm not looking at it from a franchisor side or anything.
Uh-huh.
I look at it as if I were coming back out of corporate again and I'm doing something. I had so many employees where I used to work. That was my biggest expense, my biggest headache. All right. So, this is scalable with 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
So to me, that alone is like, it was just my wife, part-time, me, part-time in tinkering, getting stuff going, and a part-time driver, right? Now the company store, and they have like, what, 176, 180 bins about.
Uh-huh.
They have full-time driver, a girl, she runs the office, and we have the marketing slash extra driver overflow, right? And so that's 3 people. And to me, that's a win. It's not a lot of overhead. And the other thing is, we don't have AR. We everything we do, it's billed before it goes. So there's no accounts receivable. And I see so many of these other businesses out there. In fact, I know too many of them in the franchise space and not franchise, that they're waiting for insurance money to come through.
Uh-huh.
And my God, if you can't float it, you're done. You are just done,
Yeah.
right? So there is none of that. And the good thing is, when you put them out there, they stay out there for many months, usually. Not like our competition, because they're going B2C. Like, somebody's doing a move, they're moving in, they want the thing out of the driveway, they're done.
Sure. These are all permanent.
Yeah, these are more like 6, 9 months, whatever. If it's a mobile office, it's almost guaranteed it's a year, just about, or
Uh-huh.
more, right? So you're not moving like a dumpster. You want turns. Ours is not about turns. Ours are like, we want to sit there and we want to take root.
Right.
We don't want it to move. We call them forever bins, and that's what you want. And we teach you, the franchisee, where to hunt for those kind of customers that are going to give you the best ROI, or, for your spend, right? That's what you want. I want them to keep them longer, and I want them to be satisfied. You want a 5-star review, and you want to just give them great service. And that's what we do.
Sure. And if I was like, I live in the Tampa Bay area, right? So if I became a franchisee, what would you say? Like, Frank, you're the top 3 markets you need to go after. This is your target audience that's going to get, the best chance of selling some Cool-Binz.
Well, number one, remodelers and contractors. Number one, first and foremost, and they already know the value of climate controlled portable storage, because they're dying for it, right? Because there isn't any. Number one,
Uh-huh.
you're the only one, right? And you can move them, like, you can move them again and again and again off the site, move them out of the way, bring them back to your facility and plug them in. So you automatically, once the builder is educated, and if they're smart, sometimes they're too busy to even know what to ask, or what to get from you. Um, you become their most important friend, because now you're giving them a mobile office. It's one-stop shop. They can say, "Give me a non-climate control, give me a climate to climate and give me a mobile office. And we have so many of those customers, so it's a one-stop shop. And now it's, who else could do it but us? No one.
Mhm.
No one else is doing it. And then the others would be every single restaurant and country club and anyone that has refrigeration. If their refrigerator goes down or if they have an event, a wedding event people, we have people that rent our freezers, refrigerators, concession stand we just introduced. It was not to be rented. It was just to be a marketing thing, and now people are renting it. We're like, oh, darn, all right, well, who knew, right? And sometimes you learn by your, mistakes or just by accident, and that's one of them we just learned.
Yeah, don't we all? What about the type of person that you think thrives as a franchisee? I would imagine there's somebody who's out there in the community doing a lot of marketing.
Yes. We want you to be a part of the community, a major part. We do a lot with charity. We didn't start doing our work with charity because we wanted business. We did it because my wife was like, she told all of us, I want everyone to pick one charity and you're going to donate 5 hours a month, regardless to that charity of your choice. So we went to some of these and some of them were like really cool. And they're like, well, hey, what'd you used to do for a living? As you're serving food, right?
Sure.
And I tell them like, well, what are you doing now? They're like, oh, well, we could use a mobile office. Or, oh, our refrigerator just went out. Can you, tell me about it? And now they become partners. But not, it wasn't sought out to be that way. It was just happened to become that, right? Which is beautiful. So I want them to have an entrepreneurial spirit.
Mhm.
I want you to believe in I want you to believe in you first, yourself first, and what you're going to be offering, the product. I think once you come in and you see what our product is, it's not one of the other brands. I almost said it.
Right.
I want you, and you'll be proud of it. And then you'll be super proud to be a part of the Belfor family. So, and all that being said, it's not without hard work, pounding the pavement. And we teach you not only where to hunt, where do you find these customers that are going to give you your business? We help train you with this. We go on those sales calls with you. And I think the most important thing that we bring to the table that no one does, and we don't get credit for it, it's all Belfor, but Belfor does this thing called market domination, and it's shared services. So all the brands in your area get together every quarter and they say, let's share a list. How can we help the community? Can you make me an introduction to this company or to
Mhm.
that company and those I can't, they pay you dividends. I mean, just dividends, but again, it's got to be earned. You just can't expect to have it or expect your phone to ring, right? You got to work it. It's really that simple. If you're not afraid to work, you'll do well.
Absolutely. What's the investment range to open a Cool-Binz franchise?
So that's interesting. It's a long play approach, right?
Mhm.
So it's not cheap to get in, and that is probably the Achilles heel. But it's going to start around 735,000 to get into a territory, which each territory population is about 400,000 people,
That's a nice
right?
size.
So yeah, yeah, and you can buy more, obviously. Obviously the bigger the territory, the more you're gonna expand and make. And then I would say, up to around 1.27. But I want you to understand that it's a heavy lift. That's to get into the game.
Uh-huh.
So there's a good and bad to that, Frank. The good is, it keeps every Tom, Dick, and Harry landscaper kind of guy out of the business. I'm not trying to pick on landscapers, but
Mhm.
it's just an analogy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so that's the beauty of it. Not everyone can get into it. That's why you don't see a lot of mobile minis, Will Scotts, or pod companies out
Sure.
there, right? It takes capital investment. And the thing that I learned that was so helpful from meeting other people in the industry, franchising, is, you want to keep reinvesting into your fleet. All right. It's a legacy play. And what I didn't understand was debt is your friend, right? If you're not in debt, you're not growing. That means you're not buying more to your fleet and you're not growing. And that took me a while to understand, from the old school of, hey, you got to pay off your house and you don't want debt, right?
Mhm.
So you're like, how does that make sense? But the more you think about it, because, if you take your depreciation,
Yeah.
right, like you're supposed to, if you have a good accountant and you start running this, it's a no-brainer. So if you're a company, let's say that's already you're a guy that or lady already have a business and you need to have some tax benefit, number one, and you want to build a legacy play at the same time, it's a win-win for you. And I'm sure your accountant would love for you to jump into it, right? And when you build your territory, the beautiful thing about it is you're not subject to a footprint. You know what I mean? Like if you're building a storage building, because we also do storage with our bids. You can line them up on the lot and they become a storage facility, right? Plug them in as you need them. So you're not cooling a whole building. But now you're not limited to your envelope of your lot. You could just keep growing and growing. Your whole objective is you want to have 300, 500 of these. And I always use the razor and razor blade, right? Your truck and your driver and your robot mule, that's one razor. And you want to service about 150 or so bins with that. So you want to have 2 to 3 long term down the road. That's what you want to grow to aspire to. Um, Not everyone has that mindset, right? So it's not for everyone. And we
Sure.
understand that.
Found that franchisees are all different and they do have different aspirations. Not everybody has the same goals in mind, and somebody's definition of success is completely different than somebody else. And you can't judge them for that. It's just where the stage are people in their lives and what they expect. Ernie, what about if I'm a franchisee, I'm a new franchisee, how quickly can I get a Cool-Binz for my customers? What's like the lag time for getting a storage unit?
Well, you're starting with an inventory in stock, right? We ship you, right? And we have a package, right? That's where that money, the 735,000, let's say, comes into play. And you're delivering hopefully that next day. And we will help the franchisees canvas everywhere and make introductions before they even open. That and we make sure that part happens. We're doing that right now, actually.
Okay. What do you think has been one of the things you learned during your franchise process that maybe surprised you along the way over the last few years?
Yeah, it's a lot of rules. When you know, Frankie, when you're an entrepreneur, there are no rules, right? You're kind of scrappy. You're just trying to make stuff work,
Right.
right? And they are very buttoned up. That you can't, you know what I mean? Which, I understand. If you're making a Big Mac, it better be a Big Mac. It better not turn out to be a Whopper, or else
Yes.
you're in trouble, right? So I get that, but I was never, you know. I like to be sort of shooting from the hip
Right.
kind of thing. So that was a major difference for me to kind of get
Of
used
course.
to.
Well, and you would be a terrible franchisee, as I would be as well. We don't like to follow the
Yes,
rules. But
exactly.
that's
Yes, we're rule
we are the
breakers.
rule breakers. But you know what? Rule breakers are the ones that create the brands.
Yes, yes, absolutely, without a doubt.
Where do you see this brand growing over the next 5 years, Ernie?
You know what? I can't wait to see it. Of course, it all depends on so many things in worldwide situations right now. But I really see it becoming a household name because it really has the legs for it because it's so unique. And I think that once people start getting it into each market, there's so many uses and so many categories that we fill. So I really see this. I'm hoping to have, across the country, if they could put on at least a dozen of new franchisees a year, I think that's pushing it, but it's healthy, right? 10 to 12, because you want to make sure you can support those people that you put into
Yeah.
place and make sure they succeed. We're not here just to sell a franchise. And that's one thing I learned going to some of these events, these franchise shows. I'm like, they're just trying to make a sale. And that doesn't sit well with me. You make money when they make money, right? It's all
That's
about
true.
royalty base. And that's the way I look at it. It's really simple, right? But I don't think everyone looks at it that way.
Sure. Um, Ernie, I would imagine that this has been one of the big surprises for you post franchise, the fact that, you were retiring and you were finished with your career. And here you've actually got a whole new bite at the apple. And it's almost like you're creating a second legacy with this brand. Do you see you doing this for life? Is Catherine going to let you retire? Where are we going to go with this, you think?
That's a sore subject right there. No, just never want me to retire. Let's start there. I don't know where the future is going to bring me on this whole journey. Honestly, I want to see people succeed. That's what brings me joy. And that's why I want to help them in any way. And I want to still design new items, new products. And I'm constantly doing that.
Right.
And that's one thing that these people are buying into. They're buying into we're an innovative company in a dinosaurish kind
Right.
of industry, right? You never thought of having innovation. Like we have monitors, we have surveillance cameras in all of our offices. So we don't mess around. We are a disruptor in the industry, which I love being a disruptor. My wife and I, we were first to market years ago with mobile video TVs for the car. So we're not new to it. But we like to be innovators and we like to be disruptors.
I sense that. Ernie, I love your authenticity and you're so genuine. I'm not surprised that you're doing well again with something new like this.
Oh, thanks.
Would you share with maybe the audience why you think now is like a great time for somebody to join Cool-Binz?
Oh, well, it's ground floor, number one. Ground floor, brand new. No one's had any product like this. It's the new widget, right? Number one. Number two, you're going to get the attention from, Belfor, and because they are behind this brand 100%. And, you're getting in on the ground floor. And that's only going to build equity in your brand. So when you go to do either a legacy play or you go to sell it down the road, you're only going to build up your own equity in your own company. That's just my take on it, but that's how
Absolutely.
I see it.
Ernie, if someone was interested in learning more about Cool-Binz and opening a franchise, where would they go?
I would go to obviously, Cool-Binz.com or Cool-Binzfranchise.com. Our salesman, Stephen Taub, he's on top of it. He's there, our Fran Dev department. You could reach out to him, Stephen Taub at Cool-Binz.com. But Cool-Binz Franchise, just Google that and search and you'll find it. It will take
All
you
right,
to it.
very nice. Ernie, I got one last question for you. I end every podcast with the franchise tip jar. And so my question for you would be this: what advice would you give your past self the night before you became a franchisor?
Get more sleep. Buckle your seatbelt, get more sleep, and really, it and be open to learning. Because I learned a lot on the franchisor side. You know what I mean? I really did learn a lot. I respect it. The franchise side of the business, and there's so many things I didn't know. So yeah, but be
That's
open-minded.
great. Ernie, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you and Catherine and the folks at Belfor all the best and success with the brand.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Frank. Appreciate it. And let me know when you're in Naples. I'll take you for the tour.
All right, will do. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.